You're listening to Play Therapy Community Podcast, episode 60.
Welcome to Play Therapy Community Podcast, providing connection, information, and inspiration to child therapists all around the world. Here's your host, a licensed psychotherapist, a registered play therapist, and my mom, Jackie Flynn.
Hi there. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Play Therapy Community Podcast. I love meeting you like this. Well, on today's show, we have Billie Jo Clausen, and I'm really excited about listening to her and learning from her, as well as the topic of infant toddler mental health, which is a mouthful to say. But thanks so much for being on the show, Billie Jo.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Well, I'm currently a home visitor. I work and support babies and toddlers in their home environment with their parents and caregivers. I have been on a quest my entire life to understand the people I'm supporting better. So in 2013, I obtained my master's degree in infant toddler mental health, and I've been on a quest to help people understand what that means. It doesn't mean that we have little bitty couches we carry around and we lay babies and toddlers on the couch and do psychotherapy with them.
That creates quite the visual.
It means that we're protective of their social and emotional health from birth to 3, and particularly the relationship that they have with their parents and caregivers, and make sure that attachment is happening, that they have a secure home base from which they can spring forth and learn. Because without that secure, good attachment, babies and toddlers can't learn very well. They continue to be in upheaval. So we learned in our program, I was at Portland State University, that we are the voice for babies. Mm-hmm. Babies can't speak for themselves.
Yeah.
We also learned tenets like the internal world of the mother or caregiver or father is the external world of the baby. Mm-hmm. Babies and toddlers do not exist by themselves alone. So the treatment or the relationship support occurs with the space between the baby and their caregiver.
Yeah, I know that's such an important time. It can really predict so many things later on in life in terms of relationship success, feeling of security and worthiness and confidence, and so many things.
Right. We want to make sure that they've got rich, warm, responsive parenting, kind of on a mission to stomp out the whole cry it out method of teaching babies to sleep, because it's just so archaic and it actually does damage to babies. They need to know that they're going to be responded to and cared for, even in the middle of the night, probably especially in the middle of the night.
That is such a big misconception, I think. I think parents, they come at it with good intention, thinking that I need to make my child independent. I need to help my child be able to sleep through the night. But according to what you're saying and what I've heard and read, that it really kind of leaves them feeling like unattended to and neglected in a way.
Right. Babies are essentially trapped where you put them by gravity. They can't get up and come to you in the night. So if they're crying, to attend to their need and help them go back to sleep is the humane thing to do.
Yes. Yes.
And the benefit is they're not scared of the dark then either. Mm-hmm. So we look at the training for infant toddler mental health is to look at risk factors, be able to identify them so that we can wrap a baby and family up in protective factors and help them recover from a traumatic event or help them develop a good attachment. Babies are highly in tune to the moods and emotions of their caregivers. Maternal depression is one of the biggest risk factors for developmental delay.
Yeah, we just had an episode on that. Previously, it airs right before this one on postpartum depression. I know that can be really tough, and there's also mental health support for that as well to be able to help. But it can have a big effect on the baby, so it's so important to get some support in that area when needed.
Right, babies can actually pick up on that, and babies can become depressed as early, I believe the latest article I read was as early as 2 months. I just
Hmm.
read an article about babies understanding and being impacted by emotions when they're in the womb.
Yes, I know as an EMDR therapist, what I tell parents and what I've learned through my training as well is 6 months in utero, they have emotional memories developing. So they may not have that cognitive memory of this happened and this is why I'm depressed, or this has happened and this is why I'm anxious, but they have that just that internal feeling that goes along with I'm unworthy or I'm not safe. And I think that the infant mental health perspective really supports really keeping the child in a good space during that time, because those memories in the early childhood are actually, very, very influential on how the child feels for the rest of their lives.
Right, those implicit memories, the ones that are nonverbal, are the memory of everything that's ever happened to you, and we all have them. And explicit memory, is our memory that we're able to talk about.
Hmm.
Sometimes our verbal selves like to override our nonverbal selves, and we may negate what our gut is saying, but our gut is responding to those implicit memories that we all hold and carry with us.
Absolutely. And
So
what cognitions go with those. That's so true.
it's very important for people who are in power, who are working in like social services, Department of Human Services, who are doing the child welfare services, and the judges who make decisions, to understand that babies have those memories, and that putting them back in the same environment where they were abused or hurt can cause re-traumatization. So they need to understand how to be watchful and supportive. And that's a big part of infant toddler mental health, is helping everyone understand what babies and toddlers know and what they need.
Yes, yes. And I know a lot of times that isn't necessarily common sense, or like many parents already like instinctively know, but many don't. If they didn't receive that good care, that connection when they were young, they may not know. So I can imagine like it's hard to parent if you haven't been parented well yourself. So I could see where that support that you provide really helps people learn ways to connect with their child and build that healthy attachment.
That's why it's so important to be able to convey the so that's to parents. They don't have they don't have memory of being possibly held, loved, and nurtured, or played with. So they
Hmm.
don't understand how to create, or that it's important to create that situation between them and their child.
Yeah.
So having those conversations so that they can be comfortable and enjoy a very rich relationship with their child is a daunting task.
Yes, especially in an overwhelming time. I think it's overwhelming when a child is born. It can be really stressful for any families, but if there's some external stressors that are really kind of pressing in, it can make it really hard. So I think there's that need for that support, but sometimes there's a stigma about receiving that support. What is your experience in terms of people seeking out your services?
Um, we run the gamut from parents self-referring and saying, I need help, to court-ordered supports.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So there's a very wide variety of acceptance of help or of support. And I think that's on me for how well I explain what my role is. And I want to be supportive of that parent in that situation. A lot of us who work in early childhood or with babies and toddlers came into the field years ago thinking we were going to work with babies and toddlers, and you're actually working with adults and trying to help them because they are their child's first teacher.
Yes.
So
Yes.
conveying that, becoming confident, not taking the baby out of their arms and showing them that I can do a good job with their baby, but teaching them how to be comfortable and confident in their space, in their caregiving, in their help, in their support of their child, teaching them that they can be successful. It's within them. Having those conversations, one of the most important things I've learned lately is to say out loud some of the things from Brene Brown's work.
I
It's
love her.
it's
She's great.
uncomfortable to learn.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be, we're going to be in some situations where neither of us are comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not in a place where it's uncomfortable, then neither of us is learning.
Yes, yes. And that vulnerability piece of being able to just accept somebody's direction and something that I mean, especially if it's like court ordered, there's probably some big emotions involved in it, and just kind of letting down that guard and accepting the information is a
Right. And
biggie.
the whole concept of feeling felt, for the
Yeah.
baby or toddler, they need to know that someone feels their emotions, and, oh, wow, that is a big emotion. I see that you're really mad. Mom said, no, you can't have a cookie. And wow, you're mad. You're so mad. You can hardly breathe right now. And teaching the parent how to talk through that. And, oh, wow, now you're starting to breathe again. And look, you feel better. And
Mm-hmm.
later on, you can have that cookie. But right now, mom said no. Teaching those dialogues so that the baby can make sense of their world, they can feel felt. We have to do the same thing reflectively with their parents, so that their parents know that oh man, I see that you're really angry. I don't blame you for being angry. You have a right to be angry. Your
Mm-hmm.
child was removed, or you've got DHS in your home 3 times a week. That makes you really mad.
Mm-hmm.
And we still need to work through it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, by doing that and naming the emotions, you're really supporting that emotional intelligence piece. And like Dr. Dan Siegel says in The Whole Brain Child, to name it is to tame it. It actually activates a different part of our brain when we give the emotions names, and it helps the child and just people in general to be able to express it in a healthier way. But just naming it de-escalates those intense emotions as well.
Right. It's the whole teapot thing, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're full of steam, you're going off. And I often talk to parents about, well, you can teach them to stuff that emotion. You can say, be quiet to that child. Or you can teach the child that you hear it, because if you don't identify that emotion, you're at risk of seeing a bigger meltdown, a bigger temper tantrum, because they're trying to show you that they're upset.
Yeah.
If you talk to them about it, they can get that you get them, and everything's a little bit better. We're not in this world alone. And that's a big part of infant toddler health, is looking at the relationship between the caregiver and the child.
Yeah. That
But in
child
our
parent relationship is so indicative of future relationships too. And I think that it really sets their perception of, I am worthy or I'm not worthy. I'm good enough. I'm not good enough. I matter. I don't matter. So
Absolutely.
it can follow them for a lifetime. But
Don't you
yeah.
find that the success of your practice, because you are a therapist working with families, the
Mm-hmm.
success of your practice is determined by the health of the relationships that you have with the people that you're supporting.
Oh, the relationship makes all the difference, whether it's parent child, therapist client, customer, salesperson, teacher, student. Relationships are key to so many things in life. So I think having that healthy blueprint for a relationship really predicts success in wherever that child goes.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned Dan Siegel. And
He's wonderful, isn't he?
yeah,
His
I'm
work is
that,
incredible.
right. I'm currently, that's kind of what I'm working on. As I shared with you earlier, I'm working on writing a book to
It's
translate
exciting.
the problem with all the wonderful information that we have from the neurobiologists is that they write in multisyllabic words, and it's kind of hard to transfer the information into actual practical application.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
To
trying.
make it to where people that aren't clinicians can really kind of listen to it and take it in and get the most out of it.
Right. So I'm fashioning a handbook for parents and teachers and caregivers to be able to apply the brain research to become more responsive in their caregiving.
Oh, that's awesome. I love his handy model of the brain. That's something I feel like he has created that has made a big impact on the people that I work with and myself in terms of understanding how the brain works, but just using that hand and how kids and people in general, any ages, can flip their lid and get just get flooded with emotion, and how you can bring that back online and be able to communicate with them. So I'm glad you're writing a handbook. That's pretty neat.
The thing that I love about infant toddler mental health is when we look at the risk factors, and when things go south, we can put protective factors in place to get everybody back on the right track and to make things healthy. And it's the work of Dan Siegel where he says, just helping the baby make sense of what happened allows them to have a healthier life from there forward.
Yes, yes. And it's so amazing that, okay, a tough early childhood can happen, and it doesn't always have to be parent-child related. It could be some other type of trauma. I know I just read Childhood Disrupted a couple times. That book is amazing. But it really talks about how, they have different case studies of, people, if they get physically ill during those early childhood years, it can really ignite parts of the brain that sends the child into that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And it can affect the rest of their lives, but it can be healed because their brain is neuroplastic, and with connection and with definitely therapy can help, but there's some things that people can do on their own. Those connections can be made and healed, and people can go on to live happy, healthy lives, even if they did have a tough early years. But it's one of those things, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's much better, like with that focus on infant toddler mental health, to really just set the foundation solid in the beginning. It could prevent so much heartache.
For a very simple example, would be babies respond differently to being in the NICU. And babies who qualify for services in my part of the world are born 32 weeks or earlier. That's one of the qualifying categories. So some babies have a really hard time with the harshness of that transition from that warm, tight, safe, wet womb space to being responsible for their own breathing in a very loud, sometimes painful environment that's really bright light.
Oh, yeah.
So if the parent knows what to look for when they turn on a vacuum sweeper that may sound like the ventilator sounded, they can say, oh, wow, I remember back when you were in the NICU. That was scary for you. It was a loud noise. The vacuum's a loud noise. We're all safe now. It was a lot to deal with when you were a tiny baby. The vacuum's something that's going to help our house get clean. Just deal with it with a really matter-of-fact way, and you're acknowledging the memory, that implicit memory the baby has, and you're helping them get over the fear of the loud noise instead of amplifying that fear because you don't know where it's coming from and you can't identify it. It's just those simple little statements that can release and acknowledge that implicit memory so that it doesn't have that power anymore.
Oh, yes. And I love how you are really kind of directing parents to speak to them. I think a lot of times when parents see infants and toddlers, they think, oh, they don't understand. They don't know what I'm saying. So they either talk in a really simple, broken down type of way, or don't share stuff at all. And I think that really kind of holds them back as well.
Right, and modeling that, talking along. There's the research on the literacy and reading to children and talking to children is the number of words that a child hears. This research by age 4 actually helps determine their intelligence and make them smarter. So
yes,
you can't say too much to a baby. And the thing that I'm kind of struggling with the so that right now you have moments in your practice, I'm sure, that you're focused on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a hard time getting parents to say, I'm going to pick you up, I'm going to carry you across the room. Given that we
Oh,
tend
yeah.
we
Heads
tend
up.
to just act on babies.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about it with them. Let's engage them in the normal everyday activities of their life so that they can hear the words for what's going on.
Especially if they've been through some type of trauma. I mean, I know that would be helpful in any case, but trauma, a lot of times the body responds with a startle response because it's on that alert mode, like, oh, I got to watch out. Like in Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score, he describes that as like we have like a smoke alarm in our brain that goes off when we sense danger. So if we're already kind of on alert because we've had like a trauma, even if they were really, really tiny or if it was in the womb, then when you grab them and kind of pick them up, or you pick them up while you're in an upset state, then it really kind of affirms that, hey, the world is a dangerous place, and that startle response kicks in. But I could imagine just picking them up real softly and saying what you're going to do could give them that sense of safety and security.
Yeah. And I like what you said about it. You be mindful of your emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like billions of seconds we can tune into and take on the emotions of another. And babies and toddlers are even more susceptible to that than grown people are.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been talking a lot about that. I think it's from the literature of Fierce Conversations. Manage your emotional wake.
Oh, I like that. Wow.
Take stock of what your emotions are, and don't be dishing out emotions to other people that you don't want them to take on because they can. And there's actually apps now to help you manage your emotions and keep yourself in a good, calm state.
Oh, yes. Yes. I like Calm. And then I love that virtual hope box. It's a really good one. Many of my clients have PTSD, and that it was created by, I'm not sure exactly what organization created, but it is incredible and it's free. So it can
What's it
help
called?
regulate your emotions. Virtual Hope Box.
Okay.
And it has guided imagery, it has distractions, it has inspiration to where you can like link up your pictures, or you can make a puzzle out of your pictures and put it together. You can link to YouTube. It has a breathing part of the app to where you can do the deep therapeutic belly breaths, all kinds of stuff. It's like the best, and it's free. So, and it's worth paying for. So it's just such a great resource.
We like free, don't we?
Yes, yes. So as I hear you speak, and I just think you're doing such great work, one of my things that I had down to ask you was talk about the emotional, the physical, and the cognitive impact that the infant toddler mental health has on people. And I really kind of hear this in many ways. Tell us a little bit more about the physical impact that this has. Like growth rate.
Chronic stress retards growth, slows growth down.
Yeah.
There's I believe he's a doctor, his last name is Harris. He did research in the 1930s, and it showed that you can actually look at bone growth from babies from when they're first born. If a mom was stressed, there'll be lines on that show the stress on in the bones of the baby. And I think that goes throughout life. I never knew that actually existed. So that was an interesting find in my research. Sounded kind of
incredible.
like when you look at rings of a tree. That we have that same demarcation in our bones.
Yeah, and I know we just recently, like I told you about that one podcast episode on postpartum depression, that really makes me think of that. And maternal health is so important. Just because the baby is not born yet, it's so important that the mother has actually, that everybody has good mental health support, but that the mother is doing well for both herself and the child, because the child's in there developing. Even though the child is not out and born yet, it's still developing, and it's such a vital time.
Right. So in answer to your development question, I'm part of a team of home visitors. We have a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, a speech language pathologist, and I'm the teacher part of the team as
Mm-hmm.
the early childhood specialist. So I'm responsible for evaluating development, um, develop, acquisition of developmental milestones and where kids are developmentally in emotional and social emotional and cognitive areas.
Mm-hmm.
I can also look at adaptive and physical areas as well. So what I notice in situations where children, very young children, are either neglected or they're stressed overly much, they tend to become overly responsible
Mm-hmm.
for, and some people would refer to that as parentified behaviors, where they're taking care of things that they shouldn't be expected to take care of at a very early age. So
Yeah.
their adaptive or self-care scores are very, very high, higher than they should be, higher than average. Their physical scores may be average. Their cognitive scores and their are generally lower than they should
Mm.
be comparatively, because they haven't been talked to. They've been stressed. They become sort of frozen. Their social emotional scores, I've had very young babies show social emotional delays because they're not responded to.
Yeah.
Um,
Like
and
that
they
crying it out at nighttime, that's a good example of not responded to it. There's such big impact of that.
Right, and I've seen moms who were told to let their babies cry it out during the daytime. If their baby's dry and their
Yeah.
baby's fed, then they don't need to be held.
Yeah.
So
Which
we
is heartbreaking because I know a lot of that misconception really, some people that are really, really wanting to do the very best for their child, and they believe that that's helpful. So I think it's so good to get this information out there and let people know, hey, that's not helpful. It could actually be hurtful.
right. So we take those developmental charts and show them, this is a snapshot right now in time. This isn't like a forever thing. This is
Hmm.
what your baby's skills are right now compared to other children his or her same age. And let's do the work that we need to do to bring those scores up in the other areas. And let's teach that baby how to relax, because they don't need to be doing caretaking.
Yeah.
It's okay for them to be a baby, and it's okay for you to take care of them in that way. They don't
Yeah.
have, because a lot of times parents who were neglected or parents who didn't have rich childhoods where they were supported think that getting off the bottle at 8 months, or never needing a pacifier, or those just early push to maturation things are things to be celebrated because my baby's growing up.
Hmm.
So teaching the whole concept of baby needs to know that you're there and holding them in a safe space, and their needs are getting taken care of by you. You're a team, and they will grow up. They don't need to sit up yet. They're only 2 months old.
Yeah.
You can hold them in a recline position. Look how safe they feel. Look, they're looking in your eyes when you're feeding them right now and talking to them. One of the hallmarks of a baby who's struggling is the inability to make eye contact at a very, very young age.
Yeah, they're trying to disassociate a little bit when it's overwhelming. You said something that really I hadn't thought about in a long time. I think that when parents, they almost feel like it's a sign that the child is further developed when they can walk at an early age, or when they can get off the bottle or get off of pacifier or stop nursing, those type of things. But really, that's nothing to rush. And it's something that's almost like seen as, okay, I'm going to work them so that if my child isn't in need of a bottle, it means they're more independent and it's going to be more predictive of their independence in life. But it does not work like that. They need that precious time to really kind of feel safe and secure and not rush their development.
Right. And when you go into like a daycare center that's supporting babies and toddlers, I always look for comfortable seating for the adults, because I want the adults to be able to make a lap for the babies.
Oh, that's a good point. And knowing that, a lot of the listeners here, many are parents, but many are child therapists, and, many are both. But that'd be great to think of when you're creating spaces for these parents to make sure you don't have the hard back chairs and, it's not all stiff, that it's more comfortable, relaxed, and creates that nurturing environment.
There's a very small window of a child's life where you get to make a lap for them.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh gosh, that gives me chills. That's beautiful. Okay, so we are almost out of time, and I just want to mention one more book before I have you share your stuff and how people can learn more about the resources that you have to offer. But there is a great book, The Whole Parent, How to Become a Terrific Parent Even If You Didn't Have One, by Deborah Wesselman. She's going to be on the show too. I'm real excited.
I want to hear that.
Oh, she's great. I actually did an episode with her on parenting in the rain. I can't remember what episode it is now, but she talks about the therapeutic benefits of playing with your children and gives some real specific steps. She had like integrative parenting book that I got that it's just amazing. But there's some real good practical tips on how to, even though you didn't experience that yourself, how to get it and be that great parent for your child, even though you didn't experience it yourself. All right. So, Billie Jo, tell us about how people can find you. I know you have like a great resourceful Facebook group. Talk a little bit about your book coming out, and when your book is published and all ready to go, be sure you contact me back. I'll go ahead and put a link to it in the show notes at that time and update the page so people can get that as well.
Well, that's so exciting. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have an it's called Infant Toddler Mental Health closed group on Facebook. It's a place, a safe space that the rest of the world doesn't necessarily see. You have to be approved to join, but there are many caring professionals in that space, and it's a place where you can share articles, share current practice, problem solve together. So you can find that on Facebook.
Oh, great.
I use my Facebook page to encourage, support, share research, share current readings, have dialogues. So my personal Facebook page, you can certainly find me there. And the book that I'm working at, I'm working to translate the work of the neurobiologists and the current research on infant toddler mental health into a meaningful handbook for practitioners to use with parents. And I'm writing it in a language I'm hoping that parents can understand so that they can apply the wonderful information about what babies need to develop healthy brains and healthy lives through responsive caregiving.
What a great idea. That's fantastic.
And actually, it's really fascinating. We're in charge of our own brains. We kind of think we're not, but we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of a wonderful little place with toggle switches.
I don't think I've found all my toggle switches yet.
But you can. One of the chapters is in my book is the message that we become the stories we tell, and our children become the stories we tell about them. So be careful what stories you tell.
Oh my goodness, yes. I know that firsthand, just working with clients into adulthood. They, one of the identified traumas is something that was told to them about, before they were even conceived. And it can be, and it's definitely important people know their history, but there's certain way and certain things that are healthy to share and some things are not.
Yeah, we don't need to re-traumatize people.
You're not kidding, because that is hard.
And the thing that's fascinating to me about epigenetics is you can go in and work on yourself so that you don't have to be impacted by those stories forever too.
Yes.
We're amazing. Humans are amazing. Babies are even more amazing than we give them credit for, but humans, wow.
Yeah, in the epigenetics, that's what the Childhood Disrupted book talks about. I'm going to have her on the podcast too. I'm so excited.
And something that I would encourage people to really delve into is the ACE, Adverse Childhood Experiences study, and the current work that's being done with building trauma-informed communities.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an ACE interface trainer. It's amazing work, and there's a rich body of information available online to find out more about that.
Yeah, and really speaks to how those adverse childhood experiences can link with different physical health issues later on in life, even way past childhood, way past young adulthood, into like autoimmune deficiencies and just a number of different things.
And what's exciting to me, Jackie, is that people like yourself who are actively working with play therapy and other therapies to turn the train around for kids, is that the early childhood traumas can have the same result in the same symptomology as autism or other disorders and look a lot like ADHD.
Yes.
But a trauma-informed therapist or a good quality relationship builder therapist can turn those relationships around and help that child relax and be able to develop those strong attachments and learn. So they don't have to be on hyper alert and think that they have to be the parent in the classroom too.
Yeah, yes. And when the symptoms look so very similar, if you're not informed, you may be thinking, well, this is a no-brainer. This is autism spectrum disorder. This is ADHD. But really, when you get into, okay, these may look the same, but this is not what this is. The treatment is actually very different. And when you have the correct treatment, you can improve the situation.
Yeah, so my hat's off to all you frontline workers in that, because I'm sending you people, Jackie. I'm sending you people
all the way from Iowa.
Well, I'm sending your kin folk here in Iowa, people, every chance I get.
Oh, thank you, Billie. It's so nice to meet you.
Nice to have met you, Jackie. And I'm going to look up your stuff. I got to listen to a lot of stuff.
Go ahead and stalk me.
I will.
I'll
be stalking you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Well, that's the first time I've ever met Billie Jo Clausen, and I really enjoyed talking to her. She just has the best energy, and she is a wealth of knowledge in this topic of infant-toddler mental health. If you would like the show notes to this episode, go ahead and visit our website at playtherapycommunity.com. Once you're there, just click on podcast, and you can see this episode and all of the ones before this. This is episode 60. Also, I would love to have you sign up for our free newsletter. You can find that on the website too. And if you haven't done so yet, join our Facebook groups and like the page, Play Therapy Community and Parenting in the Rain Community. And also, if you're an iTunes user, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really means a lot to me, and I love your messages. I read every one of them, and they just warm my heart. I really appreciate it. Well, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, take care.
To join our growing community for free, just go to playtherapycommunity.com and find us on Facebook too.
Thanks for listening to the Play Therapy Community Podcast. Until next time, bye-bye.